Carla, I just want to talk. His hand closed around her throat. Her feet lifted off the ground. Shopping bags hit the tile oranges rolling everywhere. 200 people watched. Nobody moved. Mark Devlin was crushing his ex-wife's windpipe in broad daylight, and the food court had gone silent, except for one sound click, 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 click. 4 men at the next table were taking off their rings, one by one, slow, deliberate. They didn't shout, they didn't rush, they just set those rings down beside their coffee and stood up. Before we go further, hit that subscribe button. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Because what happened next, nobody in that mall ever forgot. Carla Mendez was laughing 30 seconds before her ex-husband tried to kill her. 28 years old, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, a thin scarf around her neck because her sister Maria had warned her the air conditioning at Riverside Galleria always ran cold. She didn't know the scarf was already hiding a bruise. Yellow-green, 3 weeks old, the kind that doesn't fade fast. She was sitting across from Maria at a small table in the food court, watching her sister tear into a giant soft pretzel with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been talking about that pretzel for 2 days. Maria had insisted on this trip, actually insisted, wouldn't take no for an answer. You can't live in that apartment forever, Maria had said that morning. Come out with me, just to the mall, 1 hour. Carla had agreed because Maria was the only person left who could make her agree to anything. 3 weeks since the divorce papers had been served. 3 weeks since Mark Devlin had been told on paper signed and stamped that his wife was leaving him. The restraining order was in Carla's purse right now, folded, 500 feet. That's how far he was supposed to stay away from her. She hadn't seen him since the night the police took him out of their house. She'd hoped that meant something. Maria had told her hope was the thing that got women killed. But for 40 minutes that Sunday afternoon, Carla almost forgot. They tried on sunglasses, picked out a candle for their mother. Maria had made her laugh twice. Real laughs. The kind Carla hadn't heard come out of her own mouth in months. Then they got to the food court. The place was packed. Lunch rush. Maybe 200 people eating, talking kids running between tables. The smell of fried food from one end, cinnamon rolls from the other. White tile floors. A second-story railing where people leaned to look down at the chaos below. At one of the tables near that railing, 4 men sat drinking coffee. They weren't trying to be invisible. They had on the leather, the patches, the colors, Hell's Angels. Full club insignia across their backs. Most of the families gave them a wide berth, parents steering strollers around them. Kids hushed when they walked past. That's what happens. People see those patches and they assume the worst. These 4 had gotten used to it a long time ago. They were riding through California on a memorial run that weekend. A brother of theirs had died the month before. Cancer. They'd stopped at the mall because one of them, a big quiet man they called Tank, needed a new pair of jeans. His old ones had split down the seam during the ride. The food court coffee was a pit stop on the way out. The man at the head of the table was the one the others called Reaper. Mid-50s, gray streaking through his beard. Eyes that had seen too much and wasted very little time on anything that didn't matter. The kind of eyes that stayed still while the rest of the world flinched. Across from him sat Bones, younger, leaner, quicker in the shoulders. The kind of guy who moved like a knife, sharp, fast, always exactly where he needed to be. Beside Bones, a man named Coyote. He hadn't said more than 10 words all day, maybe not even 10. Coyote didn't need words. He had a way of looking at people that made them understand everything they needed to understand. And Tank, 6'4", 320, slow to move and impossible to move once he decided not to. Tank was the kind of man who didn't start trouble, didn't need to. Trouble looked at Tank and decided to go somewhere else. 4 men, 4 cups of coffee. They were leaving in 5 minutes. Reaper saw Carla before anybody else did. He didn't see her the way a man sees a woman he's interested in. He saw her the way an old soldier sees a flinch. He saw the scarf she kept adjusting. He saw the way she sat with her back to the wall. He saw the way her eyes moved to every entrance, every 30 seconds. He saw the bruise her sister tried to cover by leaning across the table when she laughed. Reaper had grown up in a house with a man who hid his mother. He'd spent a fair number of years in that house deciding what kind of man he was going to be. He recognized a woman who was waiting for a door to open. He'd recognized that woman 100 times, and 99 of those times he hadn't been close enough to do anything about it. He set down his cup. He didn't say anything to the others. He didn't have to. Bones looked up. Coyote looked up. Tank kept eating, but his shoulders shifted half an inch. That was Tank for I'm watching. A man had just walked into the food court from the south entrance. Big. Not biker big. Not gym big. Drunk big. The kind of big that comes from a man who used to be a high school athlete and never stopped eating like one. He wore a wedding ring on his right hand because his left ring finger had been broken too many times to fit one. He was looking for somebody. He was looking for Carla. Carla saw him a second too late. She glanced up because Maria had said, "What?" And Maria's eyes had gone past her and gone wide. By the time Carla turned, Mark was 3 tables away. She tried to stand. Her chair caught on the leg of the table. The bag she'd been holding hit the floor. Oranges from the produce aisle rolled across the tile. "Carla." He said her name like he was reminding her of something she'd agreed to. She said, "Mark, you can't be here. I just want to talk." "You can't be here. There's an order." "The order's a piece of paper." He took another step. Maria was on her feet now, phone in her hand, dialing. Mark glanced at Maria like she was a fly. He looked back at Carla. 5 minutes, outside. We talk like adults." "No." "Carla." "No, Mark." He grabbed her arm. She tried to pull away. He held tighter. Her sleeve rode up, and the bruise that ran from her wrist to her elbow showed itself in front of 40 people. Purple, green, yellow. A timeline of violence written on her skin. Maria screamed at him to let go. He didn't. He pulled Carla toward him. She went sideways. Her hip hit the table. Maria swung her arm at his face and he swatted it away without looking. Then he saw something in Carla's eyes. Maybe she was about to scream. Maybe she was about to spit. Maybe she said something he didn't like. Whatever it was, his other hand came up and it closed around her throat. He pinned her against the column behind their table. Her feet came off the ground. Her shopping bag, the one with the candle, fell out of her hand. The candle rolled across the tile and stopped at someone's shoe. The oranges had stopped rolling. Everybody in that food court had stopped all at once, like somebody had hit a button. She couldn't breathe. Her hand clawed at his wrist. She kicked. Her shoe came off. Her face was turning red, then purple. Maria was screaming for help. A woman 2 tables away was screaming, "He's going to kill her. Somebody do something." The mall security guard came running, 19 years old, maybe 160 soaking wet. He yelled, "Sir, sir, let her go." Mark didn't even look at him. The guard reached for Mark's shoulder. Mark elbowed him in the chest without turning his head. The guard went down on the tile gasping. The 4 bikers were already standing. They didn't run. They walked. They walked the way men walk when they've done this before, and they know that running makes a panicked man worse. Reaper was in the front. Tank was on his right. Bones drifted out wide to the left. Coyote moved behind, slow circling around the column. Reaper stopped 4 feet from Mark, hands open at his sides. Voice low, "Friend, let her go." Mark didn't loosen his grip. He looked at Reaper sideways. He saw the leather. He saw the patches. He saw the gray beard. And here's the thing about a man who's made hitting his wife into a habit. After enough years, a man like that has stopped being afraid of consequences. He's tested every door in his life and found them all open. He looked at Reaper, and Reaper was just one more door. "This isn't your business." Reaper said, "It is now. Walk away, old man. This is between me and my wife." Ex-wife. Mark squeezed harder. Carla made a sound that wasn't a word. It was wet. Her face was the color of wine. Tank said very quietly, "She can't breathe, brother." Mark said, back up, or I break her neck." Now here's where most people get it wrong. They think a man like Mark would have been afraid at this moment. He wasn't. He was angry. He was triumphant. He had gotten what he came for. He had her. And he was holding her in front of 100 people, and nobody was stopping him. And that confirmed everything he had ever thought about himself. Reaper looked at him, and then Reaper did the thing. He reached up to his right hand. With his left hand, he twisted the heavy silver ring off his middle finger. He held it out, looked at it for 1 second, and set it on the table beside him. Tank did the same thing. A skull ring. He set it down. Bones, 2 rings on the table. Coyote, 1 ring on his thumb. Gone. On the table. 4 neat little piles of metal. Carla, who could not breathe, was watching this through tears. She did not understand. Mark did not understand either. He looked at the 4 men and the 4 neat little piles of metal, and he laughed. It was a strange, choked, wrong laugh. What is that supposed to mean? Nobody answered him. And then Mark Devlin did something nobody expected. He let her go. He raised both his hands, palms out. He stepped back from Carla. She slid down the column to the floor, coughing, retching, alive. Maria fell to her knees beside her. Mark said very loudly, very clearly, for the cameras and the witnesses, Okay, I'm done, I'm going. This is between me and her, and I'm walking away. He took another step back. The bikers didn't move. He took another step. The young guard was on his feet again, shaking, blocking the south exit. Mark said, Move, kid. The guard moved. Mark walked toward the exit, slowly, hands still up. The crowd around them was breathing again. People were calling 911. Somebody was sobbing. The bikers stood where they had stood. Reaper exhaled. He reached down to the table, picked up his ring, and started to slide it back onto his finger. It looked for 1 second like it was over. It was not over. Mark Devlin reached into his jacket. It was a small motion. An inside pocket, left side. He did it while still walking backward, while still raising his other hand in a gesture of peace. The motion was so practiced and so quick that even Reaper, who had been watching him like a hawk, did not see it until it was finished. When his hand came back out, there was a knife in it. A folding combat knife, black handle, 4-inch blade, locked open. The kind a man carries because he means to use it, not because he's afraid he'll need it. He stopped walking backward. He looked at Reaper. He smiled. I'm not leaving without her. Now everything changed. Up to this point, what was happening in that food court was a domestic assault. Bad, ugly, visible, but the kind of thing that ends when one party gives up. And Mark had appeared to give up. Up to this point, the 4 bikers had been bystanders, making a moral choice to step in. They had been playing one kind of game. The knife changed the game. A man with a 4-inch blade in a public place in a state of rage and humiliation is not the same threat as a man with his hands. He can kill in half a second. He can kill before any of those bikers cross the 10 feet between them. And here's the thing, the bikers understood that nobody else in that food court understood. They had seen Mark's face when he said, I'm not leaving without her. They had seen the smile. He had not come to talk. He had not come to drag her home. He had come to kill her in front of her sister. And if he had to die doing it, that was fine with him. He had been planning this for 3 weeks. The papers had not been a wake-up call. They had been a starting gun. Reaper said very softly, boys. The 4 of them stopped where they were. Mark moved on Carla. She was on the floor still, Maria's arms around her. Mark grabbed Carla by the hair. She screamed. He hauled her upright. He pinned her against the column again this time, with his left arm across her chest, and put the blade flat against the side of her throat. Anybody comes any closer, I open her up. Maria was screaming. Carla was not screaming. Carla had gone somewhere quiet behind her eyes. The blade was cold against her skin, and she could feel it move when she swallowed. Tank lifted his hands calmly, voice low. Easy, brother. Easy now. Don't call me brother. Easy, friend. Nobody moves. Nobody moves. Mark looked around the food court. It was almost empty now. Most people had run. A few were behind upturned tables recording on their phones. The young security guard was 20 feet away, hand on a radio white as paper. There were no police yet. The mall was 4 miles from the nearest precinct. Mark had 4 to 6 minutes. The bikers had gone still in a way that most people would have read as fear. It was not fear. It was the way a wolf goes still before it moves. Reaper kept his hands open at his sides. He took 1 step forward. Mark pressed the blade harder. Carla winced. A line of blood appeared on her neck. I'm not coming any closer, Reaper said. I'm just going to talk. All right. Mark didn't answer. What do you want? I want her. Can't have her. Then I'll kill her. You do that, you'll be dead before her body hits the floor. You understand that, right? Maybe I'm okay with that. I believe you. That stopped Mark for half a second. He had not expected to be believed. Reaper said, "Listen, I believe you. So let's both be honest. You came here to do something." "I came here because we're both in this room now. Only one of us is going to walk out. We both know which one." "You're a long way from your bike, old man." "I am." While Reaper talked, Tank was on his right, hands raised, talking soft. Bones was on his left, drifting wider. Coyote, the quiet one. Mark could not see Coyote anymore. Coyote had gone behind the column, behind Mark. Slowly. Mark did not see this because he was looking at Reaper, because Reaper was the one talking, because Reaper was the one his eyes wanted to be on. That had been the entire point. "Mark," Reaper said. Mark blinked. The use of his name surprised him. "Mark, look at me. Listen, you let her go right now. You walk out of here. You do 20 years and you live. You hold that knife there for 10 more seconds and you don't walk out of here. Not on your feet, not in a bag, nothing. You understand? Shut up. Mark, shut up." The blade pressed harder. Another bead of blood. Carla closed her eyes. Coyote was 3 feet behind Mark now. Reaper said, "Mark, last chance." Mark said, "Oh." He never finished the word. Coyote moved. He was the smallest of the four. He had not said a word the entire afternoon. And he closed the last 3 feet between himself and Mark Devlin in something less than a second. He did not go for the knife arm. That is what most people would have done. That is what the security guard on the floor was about to try when Reaper had stopped him with a glance. Going for the knife arm in a hostage situation is how the hostage dies. Coyote went for the wrist. He used the heel of his hand. He hit Mark's wrist from above downward with the full weight of his body behind it. Mark's wrist bent in a direction wrists are not supposed to bend. The knife came out of his hand like a thrown stone, skidded across the tile, and stopped at the base of a planter 20 feet away. Mark screamed. He still had Carla. Tank moved. Tank covered the distance to the column in 3 steps. He took Carla by the shoulders, ripped her out from under Mark's left arm, like a man unscrewing a jar, and physically handed her into Maria's arms behind him. Carla's feet didn't touch the floor for the entire transfer. Mark swung at Tank with his good hand. This was a mistake. Tank caught the punch. He didn't dodge. He didn't slip it. He caught it. Mark's fist disappeared into Tank's open palm, and Tank closed his fingers around it and held it there, and looked at Mark for a half second with absolutely no expression on his face. And then Reaper was beside them. Reaper hit Mark once in the throat. Open hand. A flat, hard chop to the windpipe. Mark went down to his knees. He could not breathe. He was making a sound like a kettle. Now this is where the rings come in. I want you to understand something, because this is the part of the story that the news clips never explained. Those 4 men did not remove their rings to keep them clean. They did not remove their rings because they were getting ready to fight in a polite way. They removed their rings because each of those rings was a weapon. Heavy silver rings, club rings. Worn over a knuckle, those rings will turn a punch into a stitch wound. Worn over a knuckle into a man's throat, they will turn a chop like the one Reaper had just thrown into a kill shot. Reaper had hit Mark with a hand he had specifically prepared not to kill him with. If Reaper had been wearing his ring, Mark Devlin would have been dead on that food court floor. And Reaper had decided 3 minutes earlier that he did not want Mark Devlin dead. He had decided that he wanted Mark Devlin breathing alive, conscious, and able to walk into a courtroom in a few months and sit through a trial. That was what taking off the rings had meant. It had been a promise, not to spare him, to not finish him by accident. The other 3 knew. The whole club knew. Every man at that table had taken his rings off for the same reason. They had stood up that day intending to do exactly what they were doing now. Subdue, not kill. Restraint, not slaughter. Mark was on his hands and knees. Bones was on top of him in 2 seconds. Knee in the small of his back. Hands on his wrists. Mark was not moving. Bones was 170 pounds of pure compressed muscle, and he had Mark in a hold that was both gentle and absolutely final. Coyote crouched at Mark's head. Tank stood behind. Reaper knelt down beside Mark's face. He didn't yell. He spoke in a normal voice, so normal that the people behind the upturned tables recording on their phones captured every word clearly enough to be played back later in a courtroom. "Mark, look at me." Mark looked. "You are alive because I chose. Do you understand that? Mark made a sound. Look at my hand, Mark. Mark looked at Reaper's hand. The middle finger was bare. There was a band of paler skin where the ring had been. Years of it. That ring weighs almost an ounce. It's solid silver. If I had been wearing that ring when I hit you in the throat, you would not be breathing right now. You would be on this floor with a crushed larynx, and you would be dead before the ambulance got here. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Mark nodded. I took it off. We all took ours off so you would live. So you would go to court. So your wife, your ex-wife, could look at you across the room alive and tell a jury what you did. Mark started to cry. If you ever come near her again, if you write her a letter, if you call her phone, if you drive past her street, we will know. And the rings will be on. Do you hear me, Mark? Mark nodded. Say it. I hear you. In the distance, sirens. The bikers got off Mark slowly. One at a time, they stepped back. They put their hands up where the police would be able to see them. They did not pick up their rings. The rings stayed on the table. Evidence. They didn't care. The first cops came through the south entrance with weapons drawn, shouting. The bikers said, "He's down. The knife is by the planter. The woman is over there. We're not armed." The cops zip-tied Mark first. Then they zip-tied the bikers gently while they sorted out the story. The bikers did not complain. They knew the drill. Carla was on the floor in Maria's arms. Her neck was a band of red and purple. She was breathing in shudders. She watched them put cuffs on Reaper. And Reaper, while a young officer ratcheted plastic around his wrists, looked across the food court at her. He gave her just for 1 second a small nod. Then he was lifted to his feet and walked away. The bikers were released that evening. Every witness in the food court, every person behind every upturned table, every parent who had run with their kid, every shaken cashier said the same thing to the police. The man with the knife had been about to kill that woman. The 4 bikers had stopped him. Without taking off the rings, the lead biker said he would have killed the man by accident. With the rings off, he had only made him stop. The phones had recorded everything. The audio was clean. The bikers had said nothing they couldn't say in court. By 8 that night, all 4 were back on the road. They had not given interviews. They had given statements and signatures and nothing else. When a reporter from a local station got Reaper's phone number through somebody and called him, he said one sentence. "You should be talking to her, not to me." Then he hung up. Carla was in the hospital for 2 nights. Her larynx was bruised. There was a crack in one of the small bones in her neck that would take 6 weeks to heal. The doctor said she was lucky. The blade had been pressed against her carotid artery. A 1/4 inch deeper, and she would have bled out on that food court floor before the ambulance arrived. Maria slept in a chair beside her bed both nights and would not let anyone else touch her sister. Not even the nurses if she could help it. The first night, Carla didn't talk. She stared at the ceiling. Her hands shook when she tried to hold water. Maria held the cup for her. The second night, Maria woke up at 3 in the morning to the sound of Carla crying. Not loud, quiet. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and doesn't make much sound because the person doing it has learned not to be heard. Maria got out of the chair and climbed into the hospital bed beside her sister. She put her arms around her, and Carla pressed her face into Maria's shoulder and cried until the sun came up. When the nurses came in at 6, Maria was still holding her. The video went up that same evening. Somebody who had been behind a table had uploaded it. By midnight, it had 2 million views. By morning, 10. The title of the video, the one that everybody clicked on, was just 6 words: Hell's Angels stop mall attack cold. People couldn't stop watching it. They watched it once, then watched it again. They slowed it down. They analyzed every frame. They watched the moment the rings came off. They watched Coyote move. They watched Tank catch that punch like it was nothing. The comments section exploded. These men are heroes. This is what real men look like. I'm crying watching this. God bless the Hells Angels. News stations picked it up. Local at first, then national. By the 3rd day, it was international. BBC ran a segment. A station in Australia covered it. Someone in Japan translated the video, and it got another 5 million views. Everybody wanted to know who the 4 men were. Nobody would say. The police wouldn't release their names. The club wouldn't talk. Reaper's phone number got passed around, but he changed it after the 5th call. The bikers had already left California by the time the video went viral. They were riding north toward Oregon, finishing the memorial run they'd started. They didn't know about the video. They didn't care. Tank said it best when one of the guys at a gas station showed him the clip on his phone. We did what needed doing. That's all. Mark Devlin was charged with aggravated assault, attempted murder, kidnapping, violation of a protective order, and possession of a deadly weapon. His bail was set at $500,000. He couldn't make it. He sat in county jail for 7 months waiting for trial. His own lawyer, when he got the file, took one look at the video and told him to take whatever deal the prosecutor offered. Mark, they've got you on camera. They've got 40 witnesses. They've got the knife with your prints on it. They've got her neck with your handprints on it. You need to take the deal. Mark said no. He said it had been provoked. He said the bikers had attacked him. He said Carla had wanted to talk and he had only meant to talk. He said the knife was for self-defense. He said he'd never intended to hurt anyone. His lawyer looked at him like he was insane. Mark, you put a knife to your ex-wife's throat on camera in front of 200 people after choking on her, after violating a restraining order. You're going to lose. I want a trial. You'll get 30 years. I want a trial. The lawyer sighed. He'd seen this before, men who couldn't accept what they'd done, men who thought if they just explained it right, everyone would understand. The trial was set for 11 months out. Carla went home after 2 days in the hospital. Maria took her back to the apartment, the same apartment Carla had been hiding in for 3 weeks, the same apartment she'd been afraid to leave. Maria helped her inside. Carla sat on the couch and didn't move for an hour. Maria made tea. Carla didn't drink it. You want me to stay? Maria asked. Carla nodded. Maria stayed for a week. She slept on the couch. She made breakfast. She answered the phone when reporters called. She told them all the same thing. No comment. Leave us alone. On the 8th day, Carla woke up and said, I'm okay. You can go home. Maria didn't believe her, but she went home anyway because Carla asked her to. That night, Carla sat on her couch in the dark and thought about the 4 men who had stood up. She didn't know their names. She didn't know where they were. She didn't know if she'd ever see them again. But she knew one thing: they had saved her life, and they had done it without being asked, without hesitation, without thinking about what it might cost them. She thought about the rings, the way they'd taken them off so carefully, the way Reaper had explained it to Mark on the floor. We took them off so you would live, not because they wanted to spare him, because they wanted him to face what he'd done. Carla got up and walked to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her neck was still purple and red. The doctors had said the bruising would fade in a few weeks. The crack in her neck bone would heal in 6. She touched the bruise lightly. It hurt. Everything hurt. But she was alive. She went back to the couch and pulled a blanket over herself and fell asleep with the lights on because she was still afraid of the dark. 3 weeks later, the prosecutor called. Her name was Linda Vasquez. She was 42 years old and she'd been handling domestic violence cases for 15 years. She'd seen it all. She'd seen women go back to their abusers. She'd seen women testify and then recant. She'd seen women disappear before trial. She'd also seen women who survived and fought back. She hoped Carla was one of those. Carla, I need to talk to you about the trial. Carla's stomach dropped. Okay. Mark's lawyer just filed a motion to suppress the video. He's arguing that it was recorded without Mark's consent and that it violates his right to privacy. Carla felt something cold settle in her chest. Can he do that? He can try. He won't win, but I need you to be prepared for what this trial is going to look like. What do you mean? I mean, his lawyer is going to argue that you provoked him, that you filed for divorce to hurt him, that you lied about the abuse, that the restraining order was unnecessary, that you wanted this confrontation. Carla's voice went quiet. None of that is true. I know, but that's what he's going to say, and you're going to have to sit there and listen to it. Can you do that? Carla didn't answer right away. Carla, I don't know. Linda's voice softened. I've been doing this a long time, and I can tell you right now we have the strongest case I've ever seen. We have the video. We have 40 witnesses. We have the knife. We have your medical records. We have the restraining order. We have 3 years of police reports from your neighbors. We have him on camera choking you and putting a knife to your throat. He's going to lose. Then why does it feel like I'm the one on trial? Linda paused. Because in cases like this, you always are. But this time, you've got something most women don't. What? You've got 4 bikers who are willing to testify that they saw him try to kill you, and juries love bikers who save women. Trust me on that." Carla almost laughed. It came out as a cough. "Will they be there at the trial?" "I'm calling them next. If they're willing, yes." "Do you think they will be?" "I think," Linda said carefully, "that men who take off their rings so they don't accidentally kill someone are the kind of men who show up when they're needed." Carla hung up and sat very still. She thought about Reaper kneeling beside Mark on the floor. She thought about the way he'd spoken, calm, clear, like he'd done this before. She thought about Tank handing her to Maria like she weighed nothing. She thought about Coyote moving so fast she hadn't even seen him. She thought about Bones holding Mark down with one knee. And she thought about the rings. 4 men she didn't know had taken off their rings so her ex-husband would live long enough to face justice. She started crying again, but this time it felt different. Linda Vasquez called Reaper 2 days later. She got his number from the police report. It took 3 tries before he answered. "Yeah, is this Reaper?" A pause. "Who's asking?" "My name is Linda Vasquez. I'm the prosecutor handling the Mark Devlin case." Another pause. Longer this time. "Okay. I need to ask if you and your brothers would be willing to testify at trial." "When after inning?" 11 months from now, maybe sooner if we can move it up. We're on Riverside County Superior Court." Reaper didn't answer right away. Linda could hear wind on his end. He was writing. "What do you need us to say? The truth? What you saw? What you did? Why you did it?" "We already gave statements." "I know, but I need you in person. Juries need to see you. They need to hear you say it. We don't do interviews. We don't do press." "This isn't press. This is a courtroom. And that woman you saved needs you to show up." Reaper was quiet for a long time. Linda thought he might hang up. Then he said, "We'll be there. All 4 of you. All 4. Linda felt something loosen in her chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just put him away." He hung up. Linda sat back in her chair and smiled. She'd been hoping they'd say yes. She hadn't been sure they would. But now she had them. 4 Hells Angels willing to testify. 4 men who'd taken off their rings so they wouldn't kill a man by accident. The jury was going to love them. 6 months before the trial, Carla did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She went back to school. She'd started a degree in social work before she married Mark. She'd been 2 semesters away from finishing when he told her she didn't need it, that he made enough money, that she should focus on the house, that school was a waste of time. She dropped out because it was easier than fighting him. But now he was in jail, and she was alive, and she had 2 semesters left. She enrolled online. She took 2 classes. Introduction to Trauma-Informed Care and Advocacy for Survivors of Domestic Violence. The irony wasn't lost on her. The first class was hard. The professor talked about cycles of abuse, about coercive control, about learned helplessness, about why women stay. Carla sat at her laptop in her apartment and listened and felt like the professor was talking directly to her. She took notes. She wrote papers. She stayed up late reading articles about women who'd survived what she'd survived. And slowly something started to shift. She started to understand that what had happened to her wasn't her fault, that Mark hadn't hit her because she'd provoked him, that the abuse hadn't started because she'd done something wrong. It had started because he wanted control, and it had continued because she'd been too afraid to leave. But she had left. She'd filed for divorce. She'd gotten the restraining order. She'd survived. And now she was going back to school. 4 months before the trial, Carla got a letter. It came in a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper with 10 words written in careful handwriting. "You're not alone. We're still watching. Stay strong, sister." No signature, no name. But Carla knew who it was from. She put the letter in a frame and hung it on her wall. 3 months before the trial, Maria came over with news. "You need to see this." She pulled out her phone and showed Carla an article. It was from a biker magazine. The headline read, "The Code Why We Stand Up." The article was an interview with an unnamed Hells Angel about what had happened at the mall. He didn't give his name. He didn't say which chapter he was from. But he talked about the code, about what it meant to be a biker, about why they'd stepped in, We see a woman in trouble, we don't walk away. That's the code, always has been. Some people think we're criminals. Maybe some of us are, but we've got rules. And one of those rules is you don't let a man put his hands on a woman. Not in front of us. Not ever. Carla read the article twice. Then she read it again. Maria watched her. You okay? Carla nodded. She wasn't crying. She was smiling. They're good men, she said quietly. Yeah, Maria said. They are. 2 months before the trial, Carla went to the mall. She didn't plan to. Maria had asked her to pick up something at a store there, and Carla had said yes without thinking. She walked through the same doors. She walked past the same fountains. She walked into the food court. She stopped. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. She could feel the phantom pressure of Mark's hand on her throat. She almost turned around, almost ran. But then she saw the table. The table where the 4 men had been sitting. It was empty now, just a table, just chairs. She walked over to it slowly. She put her hand flat on the surface. The tile floor by the column had been cleaned 1,000 times. The column was just a column. The chair where Reaper had sat was just a chair. There was no plaque. There was no marker. There was just a Sunday in a food court and people eating and a kid laughing somewhere. But Carla knew what had happened here. She knew what this place meant. She stood there for a full minute. Then she picked up what Maria had asked her to pick up, and she walked out into the afternoon. Alive. 1 month before the trial, Linda called again. Carla, we got the judge's ruling on the motion to suppress. Carla's stomach tightened. And he denied it. The video stays in. All of it. Carla exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. So what happens now? Now we go to trial. Mark's lawyer made one last offer this morning. 15 years if Mark pleads guilty. What did you say? I told him no. We're going for 25 minimum, and we're going to get it. Carla closed her eyes. When does it start? 4 weeks. Jury selection starts on a Monday. The trial will probably last 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. You'll testify on day 3 or 4. The bikers will testify after you. Will I have to see him? Yes, he'll be in the courtroom the whole time, but he'll be at the defense table, 20 feet away, and there will be a bailiff between you and him. You'll be safe. Carla didn't feel safe, but she said, okay. Carla, listen to me. You're going to walk into that courtroom and you're going to tell your story, and then you're going to walk out. And Mark is going to spend the next 25 years in prison thinking about what he did. That's how this ends. Promise. Linda's voice softened. I promise. 2 weeks before the trial, Carla had a dream. She was back in the food court. Mark had his hand around her throat. She couldn't breathe. Her feet were off the ground. But this time when she looked over, the 4 bikers weren't at the table. The table was empty. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Mark was smiling. He was saying something, but she couldn't hear him. And then the dream shifted. The 4 men were standing behind her. Not at the table. Behind her. Between her and Mark. Reaper said, "You're safe now, sister." And Mark disappeared. Carla woke up gasping. Her heart was racing. It took her a full minute to remember where she was. She got out of bed and walked to the window. It was still dark outside. 4 in the morning. She looked at the letter on her wall, the one with no signature. You're not alone. We're still watching. She went back to bed and slept until morning. 1 week before the trial, Maria moved in. You're not doing this alone, she said. I'm staying until it's over. Carla didn't argue. They spent the week preparing. Linda came over twice to go through Carla's testimony, what she'd say, how she'd say it, what questions Mark's lawyer would ask. He's going to try to rattle you, Linda said. He's going to ask you why you didn't leave sooner, why you married him, why you went to the mall that day. None of it matters, but he's going to ask. What do I say? You tell the truth. You left when you could. You married him because you loved him. You went to the mall because your sister asked you to, that's all. Carla nodded. Her hands were shaking. Maria reached over and held them. 3 days before the trial, Carla got a phone call from a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello, a man's voice, low, familiar. This is Reaper. Carla's breath caught. I wanted to call before the trial, make sure you're okay. Carla didn't know what to say. She'd thought about these men every day for 11 months. She'd imagined what she'd say if she ever got the chance to thank them. Now she couldn't find the words. "I'm okay," she said finally. "I'm scared, but I'm okay." "That's normal. You're going to walk in there and tell them what he did, and we're going to back you up, all four of us. You understand?" "Yes." "You're not alone in this." Carla felt tears sliding down her face. "Thank you for everything, for saving my life, for showing up, for—" "Don't thank me yet," Reaper said. "Thank me after he's convicted." "He's going to be convicted." "Yeah," Reaper said. "He is." They hung up, and Carla sat on her couch and cried until she had nothing left. The day before the trial, Carla couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Maria was asleep on the couch. The apartment was quiet. Carla thought about tomorrow, about walking into that courtroom, about seeing Mark for the first time in almost a year. She thought about what Linda had said. "You're going to walk in there and tell your story, and then you're going to walk out." She thought about the four men who would be sitting in the gallery, watching, waiting to testify. She thought about the rings, and somewhere around 3 in the morning, Carla made a decision. She was going to walk into that courtroom. She was going to look Mark in the eye, and she was going to tell the jury exactly what he'd done. Not because she was brave, not because she wasn't afraid, but because four men she'd never met had taken off their rings so he would live long enough to face what he'd done, and she wasn't going to let that go to waste. She fell asleep an hour before sunrise. When she woke up, Maria was already making coffee. "You ready?" Maria asked. Carla got out of bed. She looked at herself in the mirror. Her neck had healed. The bruises were gone. The crack in her bone had mended. But the scars were still there. They'd always be there. "Yeah," Carla said. "I'm ready." The courtroom was smaller than Carla had imagined. She walked in with Maria at 8:30 in the morning. Linda was already there sorting through files at the prosecution table. She looked up when Carla entered and gave her a small nod. Carla sat in the front row of the gallery. Maria sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. The room filled slowly. Reporters, spectators, a sketch artist in the corner, the bailiff standing by the door. And then at 8:45, four men walked in. Carla recognized them immediately, even though she'd only seen them once. Reaper in front, Tank behind him, Bones and Coyote following. They weren't wearing their colors. They had on plain shirts, jeans, boots, but they still looked like exactly what they were. Reaper's eyes found Carla's across the room. He didn't smile. He just nodded once. Then he sat down in the back row with the others. Carla felt something settle in her chest. They were here. They'd kept their word. At 9 o'clock, the bailiff said, "All rise." The judge walked in, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She sat down and everyone else sat down. "The people versus Mark Andrew Devlin. Are both parties ready?" Linda stood. "Ready, Your Honor." Mark's lawyer stood. His name was Gerald Fisher. Mid-40s, expensive suit, the kind of lawyer who defended people with money. Mark didn't have money anymore, but his parents did. "Ready, Your Honor." The judge looked at the bailiff. "Bring in the jury." 12 people filed in, 7 women, 5 men. They sat in the jury box and looked around the courtroom like they were trying to figure out what they'd gotten themselves into. The judge explained the charges: aggravated assault, attempted murder, kidnapping, violation of a protective order, possession of a deadly weapon. Mark sat at the defense table in a suit Carla had never seen before. His hair was cut short. He looked smaller than she remembered. Older. He didn't look at her. Linda stood to give her opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, on a Sunday afternoon 11 months ago, Mark Devlin walked into a crowded shopping mall with one purpose: to kill his ex-wife. He brought a knife. He violated a restraining order. And in front of 200 witnesses, he choked Carla Mendez until she couldn't breathe, then put a blade to her throat and told her he wasn't leaving without her. If it hadn't been for 4 men who happened to be sitting nearby, Carla Mendez would be dead. This is not a case about a man who lost his temper. This is a case about a man who planned to commit murder and almost succeeded. By the end of this trial, you will have no doubt that Mark Devlin is guilty of every charge against him." She sat down. Fisher stood. "Ladies and gentlemen, my client made a terrible mistake. He admits that. He was emotional. He was hurting. His wife had just served him divorce papers after 10 years of marriage. He went to the mall to talk to her. Not to hurt her, to talk. And when he saw her, he lost control. For 30 seconds, he lost control. That is not attempted murder. That is a man in pain making a tragic error in judgment. Was it wrong? Yes. Should he have been there? No. But did he intend to kill her? The evidence will show that he did not. And that is what this case is about. Intent. He sat down. Carla's hands were shaking. Maria took one of them and held it tight. The judge looked at Linda. Call your first witness. Linda stood. The people call Officer James Rodriguez. The cop who'd responded to the scene walked in. Young, maybe 25. He looked nervous. Linda walked him through his testimony. What time he'd arrived, what he'd seen, the knife by the planter, mark on the ground, Carla's neck. Officer Rodriguez, when you arrived, what was the defendant's demeanor? He was agitated. He kept saying it wasn't his fault, that she'd provoked him. Did he ask about Ms. Mendez's condition? No, ma'am. Did he express remorse? No, ma'am. Fisher cross-examined. Officer Rodriguez, did my client resist arrest? No, sir. Did he threaten anyone after you arrived? No, sir. Did he attempt to flee? No, sir. So he cooperated with law enforcement? Yes, sir. Thank you. No further questions. Linda called 3 more witnesses that morning. The security guard who'd tried to stop Mark, a woman who'd been sitting 2 tables away, a man who'd recorded part of the incident on his phone. All of them said the same thing. Mark had been choking Carla. He'd pulled out a knife. The bikers had stopped him. The judge called for lunch at 12:30. Carla didn't eat. She sat in a small room with Maria and Linda and stared at the wall. You're doing great, Linda said. Carla didn't feel like she was doing anything. She was just sitting there. This afternoon, I'm going to call the emergency room a doctor who treated you. Then tomorrow morning, you will testify. Are you ready? Carla nodded. She wasn't ready, but she was going to do it anyway. They went back into the courtroom at 1:30. Linda called Dr. Sarah Chen, the ER doctor who'd examined Carla the night of the attack. Dr. Chen was calm and professional. She walked the jury through Carla's injuries. The bruising on her neck, the petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes, the fractured hyoid bone. Dr. Chen, in your medical opinion, was Mrs. Mendez in danger of dying when she arrived at the hospital? Yes, if the strangulation had continued for another 30 seconds, she likely would have lost consciousness. Brain damage occurs after 3 to 4 minutes without oxygen. Death can occur in as little as 5. And the fracture to her hyoid bone, how much force does that require? Significant force. The hyoid is a small bone in the neck. It typically only fractures in cases of severe strangulation or hanging. So this was not, in your opinion, a brief loss of control. No, this was sustained, forceful strangulation with intent to cause serious harm or death. Fisher stood. Dr. Chen, you examined Ms. Mendez several hours after the incident, correct? Yes. You didn't witness the incident yourself? No. So you can't say with certainty how long the strangulation lasted, can you? I can say that the injuries are consistent with sustained force over a period of time. But you don't know if it was 30 seconds or 3 seconds, do you? The extent of the injuries suggests more than 3 seconds. But you don't know. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. No, I was not there. Thank you. No further questions. Linda stood. Redirect, Your Honor. Dr. Chen, in your 15 years as an emergency physician, how many strangulation cases have you treated? Approximately 200. And in your professional experience, do injuries like the ones Ms. Mendez sustained occur from brief contact? No, these injuries require sustained pressure over a minimum of 20 to 30 seconds. Thank you. The judge looked at the clock. We'll adjourn for today. Court will resume tomorrow morning at 9. Ms. Vasquez, please have your next witness ready. Yes, Your Honor. The bailiff said, all rise. Carla stood. Her legs felt like water. Maria put an arm around her. As they walked toward the door, Reaper stood. He didn't say anything. He just looked at Carla and nodded. She nodded back. That night, Carla didn't sleep. She lay in bed going over everything Linda had told her to say. Linda had given her a list. Simple answers. Yes or no when possible. Don't elaborate. Don't get defensive. Just tell the truth. But Carla was terrified of the truth, because the truth was that she'd stayed with Mark for 3 years after the first time he hit her. The truth was that she'd lied to her family about the bruises. The truth was that she'd gone back to him 6 times after she'd said she was done, and Fisher was going to ask her about all of it. Maria knocked on her door at 2 in the morning. "You awake?" "Yeah." Maria came in and sat on the edge of the bed. "You're going to be okay tomorrow." "How do you know?" "Because I know you. You're the strongest person I've ever met." Carla laughed. It sounded wrong. "I stayed with him for 3 years." "You left. After he almost killed me." "You left. That's what matters." Carla closed her eyes. "What if they don't believe me?" "They will. You're going to walk in there and tell them what he did. And they're going to see you, really see you, and they're going to know you're telling the truth." "What if I can't do it?" Maria took her hand. "You can, and I'll be right there the whole time." The next morning, Carla wore a dark blue sweater and black pants. No jewelry except for a small cross necklace her mother had given her when she was 16. Linda met them in the hallway outside the courtroom. "You ready?" Carla nodded. "Remember what we talked about. Short answers. Look at the jury when you speak. If you need a break, tell me. We can stop anytime." "Okay." They walked into the courtroom together. The jury was already seated. The judge was already at the bench. Mark was at the defense table. This time he looked at her. Carla looked away. Linda stood. "The people call Carla Mendez." Carla walked to the witness stand. The bailiff held out a Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "Truth, so help you God." "I do." She sat down. The chair was hard. The courtroom was too bright. She could feel everyone looking at her. Linda smiled. "Good morning, Carla. Can you state your full name for the record?" "Carla Marie Mendez." "And how old are you?" 28. "Are you married?" "No, I'm divorced." "When did you get divorced?" "The papers were finalized 4 months ago, but I filed 11 months ago." "And who were you married to?" Carla looked at Mark. He was staring at the table. "Mark Devlin." "How long were you married?" 3 years. "Can you tell the jury why you filed for divorce?" Carla took a breath. "Because he hit me, and I was afraid he was going to kill me." Someone in the gallery gasped. The judge glanced up but didn't say anything. Linda nodded. "Can you tell the jury when the abuse started?" "About 6 months after we got married." "What happened?" "We were arguing about something, I don't even remember what. And he pushed me. I fell and hit my head on the coffee table." "Did you call the police?" "No." "Why not?" "Because he apologized. He said it would never happen again. And I believed him." "Did it happen again?" "Yes." "How many times?" Carla's voice cracked. "I don't know. Too many to count." Linda walked closer. "Carla, I know this is difficult, but I need you to tell the jury what happened on the last night Mark was in your home, the night before you filed for divorce." Carla closed her eyes. She could see it. Mark coming home drunk, her asking him where he'd been, him grabbing her by the throat and slamming her against the wall. "He came home late. He'd been drinking. I asked him where he'd been and he got angry. He grabbed me by the throat and pushed me against the wall. He said if I ever questioned him again, he'd kill me. He said he'd make it look like an accident." "What did you do?" "I waited until he fell asleep. Then I packed a bag and went to my sister's house. The next morning I filed for divorce and got a restraining order." "Did you see Mark again after that night?" "Not until the day at the mall." "Can you tell the jury what happened that day?" Carla told them, every detail, walking into the food court with Maria, seeing Mark, trying to stand, the oranges rolling across the floor, his hand around her throat, her feet leaving the ground, the knife. She told them about the bikers, about Reaper talking to Mark, about Coyote moving, about Tank pulling her away, about Reaper hitting Mark in the throat. She told them about waking up in the hospital with her sister beside her. By the time she finished, half the jury was crying. Linda said no further questions. Fisher stood. Carla's heart started pounding. This was the part she'd been dreading. "Ms. Mendez, you testified that my client hit you. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Did you ever file a police report?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid of what he'd do if I called the police." "But you're not afraid now." "I'm still afraid, but he's in jail now, so I'm less afraid." "You said the abuse started 6 months into your marriage, but you stayed for 3 more years. Why?" Carla felt her throat tighten. Because I loved him, and I thought he would change. Did you ever cheat on my client? Linda shot to her feet. Objection, relevance. Sustained. Fisher didn't miss a beat. Did you provoke my client on the day of the incident? No. You didn't say anything to him that might have upset him? I told him he couldn't be there, that there was a restraining order. And that didn't upset him. I'm sure it did, but that doesn't give him the right to try to kill me. Objection, Fisher said, non-responsive. Overruled, the judge said. The witness may answer. Fisher changed tactics. Miss Mendez, you filed for divorce and got a restraining order. Why did you go to a public place where you knew my client might see you? Carla felt anger rising in her chest. Because I have a right to go to the mall. I have a right to live my life. But you knew there was a risk. Yes, there's always a risk when you leave an abusive man. But that doesn't mean I should have to hide for the rest of my life. No further questions. Linda stood for redirect. Carla, did you want to see Mark that day? No, T. Did you know he would be there? No. Did you provoke him in any way? No. Thank you. No further questions. The judge looked at Carla. You may step down. Carla stood. Her legs were shaking. Maria was waiting at the end of the aisle. She walked toward her and Maria grabbed her hand. They sat down. Carla was crying. She couldn't stop. Linda called her next witness. The people call Reaper. The courtroom went still. Reaper stood. He walked to the witness stand. He was wearing a plain black shirt and jeans. No leather, no patches. But everyone in that room knew exactly who he was. The bailiff held out the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. He sat down. He looked calm, like he'd done this before. Linda stood. Can you state your name for the record? Raymond Cole. Carla blinked. She'd never known his real name. Mr. Cole, where were you on the afternoon of June 14th? At the Riverside Galleria, food court. What were you doing there? Drinking coffee with my brothers. Your brothers? My club brothers. 3 other men. Are they here today? Yes. Can you point them out? Reaper pointed to the back row. Tank, Bones, Coyote. The 3 men nodded. Linda walked closer. Mr. Cole, can you tell the jury what you saw that day? Reaper looked at the jury. His voice was steady. I saw a woman sitting at a table with her sister. She looked scared, kept looking at the doors. I know that look. I grew up with a mother who had that look. It means she's waiting for someone who's going to hurt her. What happened next? A man walked in, big guy. He went straight for her. She tried to stand up. He grabbed her. Then he put his hands around her throat and lifted her off the ground. What did you do? I stood up. My brother stood up. We walked over. Why? Because he was killing her, right there in front of 200 people, and nobody else was doing anything about it. What happened when you got there? I told him to let her go. He didn't. So I did something I learned a long time ago. What's that? I took off my ring. The courtroom was silent. Why did you take off your ring? Because I didn't want to kill him. My ring is heavy silver. If I'd hit him with it on, I would have crushed his windpipe. He would have died right there. I didn't want that. I wanted him to stand trial. So you took off your ring to avoid killing him? Yes. Did the other men do the same? Yes, all 4 of us. Linda picked up a plastic bag from the prosecution table. Inside were 4 rings. Are these the rings? Yes. Your Honor, I'd like to enter these into evidence as People's Exhibit 7. So admitted. Linda held up the bag so the jury could see. Mr. Cole, what happened after you took off your rings? Reaper told them everything. The knife, Coyote's move, Tank pulling Carlo away, the hit to Mark's throat, Mark on the ground. He didn't embellish, he didn't dramatize, he just told them what happened. When he finished, Linda said, Mr. Cole, in your opinion, if you and your brothers had not intervened, what would have happened to Carla Mendez? She'd be dead. No further questions. Fisher stood. He looked nervous. Carla could see it in the way he held his notes. Mr. Cole, you're a member of the Hells Angels, correct? Yes. And the Hells Angels have been involved in criminal activity, haven't they? Linda stood. Objection, relevance. Your Honor, I'm establishing credibility. Overruled, but make it quick, Mr. Fisher. Fisher turned back to Reaper. Have you ever been arrested? Yes. How many times? 3. What for? Bar fights, all dismissed. So you have a history of violence. Reaper's eyes went cold. I have a history of standing up when somebody needs help. You expect this jury to believe you took off your ring to avoid killing my client. I don't expect anything. I'm telling you what happened. Isn't it true that you attacked my client unprovoked? No, Tim. Isn't it true that you and your brothers assaulted my client while he was trying to leave? No, he pulled a knife. He put it to that woman's throat. We stopped him. Fisher looked at his notes. He was losing ground and he knew it. No further questions. Linda stood. Redirect, Your Honor. Mr. Cole, why did you help Carla Mendez that day? Reaper looked at Carla. For the first time, his expression softened. Because nobody helped my mother. And I swore a long time ago that if I ever saw a woman in trouble, I wouldn't walk away. Thank you. No further questions. The judge looked at Fisher. Any recross? No, Your Honor. Mr. Cole, you may step down. Reaper stood. As he walked past the jury box, one of the jurors, a woman in her 60s, was crying. He sat down in the back row. Tank reached over and put a hand on his shoulder. Linda called Tank next, then Bones, then Coyote. All 3 of them told the same story. All 3 of them had taken off their rings. All 3 of them had stopped a man from killing his ex-wife. By the time Coyote stepped down, it was 4 in the afternoon. The judge looked at Linda. Do you have more witnesses? No, Your Honor. The people rest. The judge looked at Fisher. Mr. Fisher, are you ready to present your defense? Fisher stood. He looked tired. Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Mark Devlin. Carla's stomach dropped. Mark stood. He walked to the witness stand. He looked at the jury like he was their friend. The bailiff swore him in. Fisher stood. Mark, can you tell the jury what happened on June 14th? Mark's voice was soft, rehearsed. I went to the mall to talk to my wife. I missed her. I wanted to work things out. When I saw her, I got emotional. I grabbed her. I shouldn't have. I know that now, but I never intended to hurt her. Why did you have a knife? For protection. I carry it everywhere. Did you intend to use it on Carla? No, never. Then why did you pull it out? Because those men were threatening me. I was scared. Carla wanted to scream. It was all lies, every word. Fisher sat down. Linda stood. She didn't look at her notes. Mr. Devlin, you said you went to the mall to talk to your wife, but there was a restraining order, wasn't there? Yes. So you knew you weren't supposed to be within 500 feet of her? Yes. But you went anyway? Yes. You said you got emotional when you saw her. How emotional? Very. Emotional enough to choke her until she couldn't breathe. I didn't mean to. Yes or no, Mr. Devlin? Did you choke her? Yes. Did you lift her off the ground? Yes. Did you put a knife to her throat? Mark hesitated. Yes. And you told her you weren't leaving without her, didn't you? I don't remember saying that. You don't remember because 40 people heard you say it, and it's on video. Mark didn't answer. Linda walked closer. Mr. Devlin, you said you never intended to hurt her, but you fractured a bone in her neck. Do you know how much force that takes? I don't know. A lot. Dr. Chen testified that it requires sustained, forceful pressure. That doesn't sound like someone who didn't intend to hurt her, does it? I lost control. You lost control. How many times have you lost control with Carla? Fisher stood. Objection. Asked and answered. Sustained. Linda didn't back down. Mr. Devlin, did you bring the knife to the mall planning to kill your ex-wife? No. Then why did you tell her you weren't leaving without her? I don't remember. You don't remember, but you remember everything else. I was upset. You were upset, so upset that you violated a restraining order, choked your ex-wife in public, and put a knife to her throat. And you expect this jury to believe it was just a loss of control. Mark's face went red. She left me. After everything I did for her, she left. Linda stopped. She looked at the jury, then back at Mark. She left you, so you tried to kill her? No. Yes, Mr. Devlin, that's exactly what you did. No further questions. The judge looked at Fisher. Recross, Fisher shook his head. He looked defeated. No, Your Honor. Mr. Devlin, you may step down. Mark walked back to the defense table. He didn't look at Carla. The judge said, we'll adjourn for today, closing arguments tomorrow morning at 9. Carla walked out of the courtroom with Maria. She felt numb. In the hallway, Reaper was waiting. You did good in there, he said. Carla looked at him. Thank you for everything. He nodded. We'll be here tomorrow for the verdict. You don't have to. I know. He walked away. Tank Bones and Coyote followed. That night, Carla finally slept. The next morning, Linda gave her closing argument. She stood in front of the jury box and looked at each juror individually. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not complicated. Mark Devlin violated a restraining order. He walked into a crowded mall. He choked his ex-wife until she couldn't breathe. He pulled out a knife. He put that knife to her throat, and he told her he wasn't leaving without her. All of this happened in front of 200 witnesses. It's on video. You've seen it. You've heard the testimony. The only question you need to answer is this. Did Mark Devlin intend to kill Carla Mendez that day? And the answer is yes. He brought a knife. He violated a restraining order. He told her he wasn't leaving without her. Those are not the actions of a man who wanted to talk. Those are the actions of a man who came to commit murder. If it hadn't been for 4 strangers who stood up when nobody else would, Carla Mendez would be dead. Don't let Mark Devlin walk away from what he did. Hold him accountable. Find him guilty. She sat down. Fisher stood. He looked tired, like he knew he'd already lost, but had to go through the motions anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, my client made a terrible mistake. He admits that, but a mistake is not the same as attempted murder. Murder requires intent, and the evidence does not show intent. Yes, Mark went to the mall. Yes, he grabbed Carla. Yes, he lost control. But losing control in a moment of emotional distress is not the same as planning to kill someone. Mark brought a knife for protection not to use on Carla. When those men approached him, he felt threatened. He pulled the knife to defend himself. Was it the right decision? No. But it wasn't attempted murder. It was a scared man making a bad choice. I'm asking you to consider that. To see my client as a human being who made a mistake, not a monster. Thank you. He sat down. The judge looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you will now deliberate. Please follow the bailiff to the jury room. The 12 jurors stood and filed out. Carla watched them go. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Maria squeezed her hand. It's going to be okay. Carla nodded, but she didn't believe it. Linda came over. Now we wait. It could be an hour. It could be 3 days. Try not to think about it. Carla almost laughed. How was she supposed to not think about it? They went to a small room down the hall. Maria bought coffee from a machine that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in a decade. Carla didn't drink hers. Reaper and the others sat on a bench outside the courtroom. They didn't talk. They just waited. 1 hour passed, then 2. At noon, Linda's phone rang. She looked at the screen, then at Carla. They have a verdict. Carla felt her stomach drop. Already? Yes, that's usually a good sign for us. Quick verdicts usually mean guilty. Usually, come on, let's go. They walked back into the courtroom. The gallery was filling up again. Reporters, spectators, the sketch artist. Mark was already at the defense table. He looked pale. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Mark. That was another good sign, Linda had said. When a jury won't look at the defendant, it usually means they've convicted him. The judge looked at the jury foreman. Have you reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. Please hand it to the bailiff. The foreman handed over a piece of paper. The bailiff walked it to the judge. She read it. Her face didn't change. She handed it back to the bailiff, who returned it to the foreman. Will the defendant please rise? Mark stood. Fisher stood beside him. Carla couldn't breathe. The judge looked at the foreman. On the charge of aggravated assault, how do you find guilty? Carla heard someone gasp. It might have been her. On the charge of attempted murder, how do you find guilty? Maria grabbed Carla's hand so hard it hurt. On the charge of kidnapping, how do you find guilty? Mark's knees buckled. Fisher grabbed his arm to keep him standing. On the charge of violation of a protective order, how do you find guilty? On the charge of possession of a deadly weapon, how do you find guilty? The judge looked at the jury. Thank you for your service. You are dismissed. The jurors filed out. Several of them were crying. The judge looked at Mark. Mr. Devlin, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will be scheduled for 6 weeks from today. You are remanded into custody. Bailiff, please take him away. The bailiff walked over. Mark was shaking. He looked at Carla. For the first time since the trial started, he looked her directly in the eyes. She looked back. She didn't flinch. The bailiff put handcuffs on Mark and let him out through a side door. The courtroom erupted. People were talking. Reporters were rushing out to file their stories. Someone was crying. Carla just sat there. She couldn't move. Maria was hugging her. It's over. It's over. He's going to prison. Linda came over. She was smiling. Guilty on all counts. That's as good as it gets. Carla nodded. She still couldn't speak. Reaper walked over. He looked at Carla and nodded once. Then he turned and walked out with the others. Carla wanted to call after him, to thank him, to say something, but he was already gone. 6 weeks later, Carla walked back into the same courtroom for sentencing. This time she wasn't nervous. She knew what was going to happen. Linda had told her. The judge would hear statements from both sides. Then she'd hand down the sentence. Mark's parents were there. His mother was crying. His father looked angry. Carla didn't feel sorry for them, and they'd raised a man who thought it was okay to put his hands on a woman. Maybe they'd done their best. Maybe they hadn't. Either way, their son was going to prison. The judge looked at Linda. Does the prosecution wish to make a statement? Linda stood. Yes, Your Honor. The people recommend the maximum sentence, 25 years. Mark Devlin showed no remorse. He has a history of violence. He violated a restraining order. He attempted to murder his ex-wife in front of 200 witnesses. He is a danger to society and to Carla Mendez specifically. We ask that he be given the maximum sentence to ensure he cannot harm her or anyone else again. The judge nodded. She looked at Fisher. Does the defense wish to make a statement? Fisher stood. Your Honor, my client is deeply sorry for what he did. He has had 11 months in jail to reflect on his actions. He asked for leniency. He asked for a chance to rehabilitate himself. He asked that the court consider a lesser sentence. The judge didn't look impressed. Does the victim wish to make a statement? Linda looked at Carla. Yes, Your Honor. Carla stood. Her hands were shaking. Linda had asked her if she wanted to speak. Carla had said yes. She'd written something the night before. She'd practiced it a dozen times. But now, standing in front of the judge, she forgot every word. She looked at Mark. He was staring at the table. She took a breath. Your Honor, I lived in fear for 3 years. I lived in fear of what Mark would do if I left. I lived in fear of what he would do if I stayed. I lived in fear of what he would do if I called the police. I lived in fear every single day. And then I left. And I thought the fear would go away. But it didn't. It got worse. Because I knew he would come for me. I knew he wouldn't let me go. And I was right. He came for me. He tried to kill me. And if it hadn't been for 4 men I'd never met, he would have succeeded. I don't know what the right sentence is. I don't know how many years will keep me safe. But I know that I want to live without fear. I want to walk into a mall without looking over my shoulder. I want to sleep without nightmares. I want to live. And I can't do that if Mark Devlin is free. Thank you. She sat down. Maria put an arm around her. The judge looked at Mark. Mr. Devlin, do you wish to make a statement? Mark stood. His voice was quiet. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. I never meant to hurt her. I loved her. I still love her. I just wanted to talk. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I'm sorry. The judge stared at him for a long moment. Then she spoke. Mr. Devlin, I have presided over hundreds of domestic violence cases in my 20 years on the bench. And I have heard your speech before. I have heard men say they're sorry. I have heard men say they didn't mean it. I have heard men say they love their victims. And do you know what I have learned? Men who truly love their partners do not choke them. They do not put knives to their throats. They do not violate restraining orders. You did not love Carla Mendez. You wanted to own her. And when you realized you couldn't, you tried to kill her. That is not love. That is control. And it ends today. She looked down at her notes. Mark Andrew Devlin, you have been found guilty of aggravated assault, attempted murder, kidnapping, violation of a protective order, and possession of a deadly weapon. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole after serving 20 years. You are also ordered to have no contact with Carla Mendez for the rest of your life. If you attempt to contact her in any way, additional charges will be filed. Do you understand? Mark nodded. He was crying. Bailiff, take him away. The bailiff led Mark out. His mother was sobbing. His father was yelling something Carla couldn't hear. The judge banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. Carla stood. She felt like she was floating. 25 years. Mark would be in his 50s when he got out. She would be in her 40s. It was over. It was finally over. Linda hugged her. You did it. You testified. You stood up to him, and now he's going away for a long time. Carla nodded. She couldn't speak. She was crying too hard. Maria held her. They stood there in the courtroom for a long time. People filed out around them. Reporters tried to get Carla's attention. She ignored them. When the courtroom was finally empty, Carla walked out into the hallway. Reaper was waiting. He was alone this time. Tank Bones and Coyote had already left, but Reaper had stayed. I wanted to make sure you were okay, he said. Carla looked at him. This man who had saved her life. This man who had taken off his ring so her ex-husband would live long enough to face justice. This man who had shown up to testify even though he didn't have to. Thank you, she said, for everything, for being there, for standing up, for giving me a chance to survive. Reaper shook his head. You did that. You survived because you were strong. We just helped. You saved my life. Maybe, but you're the one who left him. You're the one who filed for divorce. You're the one who testified. That took courage. More courage than anything we did. Carla felt tears running down her face again. I don't feel brave. You don't have to feel it. You just have to do it. And you did. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. He handed it to Carla. It was a ring, the same ring he'd taken off in the food court. Heavy silver, worn smooth from years of wear. I want you to have this, he said. Carla looked at it, then at him. I can't take this. Yes, you can. I've got others. This one means something now. It means you survived. It means somebody stood up. Keep it. And if you ever feel afraid again, look at it. Remember that you're not alone. Carla closed her fingers around the ring. It was heavy, solid, real. Thank you. Reaper nodded. You take care of yourself. And if you ever need anything, you call the club. Any chapter. You tell them Reaper sent you. They'll help. Okay. He turned to walk away. Wait, Carla said. He stopped. Why did you help me? You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. Reaper looked at her. His eyes were sad. My mother died when I was 17. My father beat her for 15 years. And nobody ever stood up for her. Not once, not her family, not her friends, not the neighbors who heard her screaming. Nobody. She died alone and afraid. And I swore on her grave that I would never let that happen to another woman. Not if I could help it, that's why. Carla couldn't breathe. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be sorry, just live. Live the life she didn't get to live. That's all any of us can do. He walked away. This time Carla let him go. She stood there in the hallway for a long time holding the ring in her hand. Maria came up beside her. You okay? Yeah, Carla said. I think I am. 3 months after the sentencing, Carla went back to school full-time. She finished her degree in social work. She graduated with honors. At the ceremony, Maria was in the front row screaming her name. Carla walked across the stage and accepted her diploma. She thought about Mark, about the 3 years she'd lost, about the woman she used to be. And she realized she didn't recognize that woman anymore. She'd become someone else, someone stronger, someone who'd survived. 6 months after graduation, Carla opened a small office above a dentist's practice. 2 rooms, a phone line, a desk, a couch. She called it Maria's house, after her sister. The sister who'd insisted she go to the mall that day. The sister who'd held her in the hospital. The sister who'd never left her side. The office was for women fleeing abuse. Women who needed help. Women who needed someone to tell them they weren't alone. Carla worked there 3 days a week. She answered the phone. She met with women. She connected them with lawyers, shelters, counselors. She told them her story. She showed them the scar on her neck. She told them about the 4 men who'd stood up, and she told them the same thing Reaper had told her. You're stronger than you think. You just have to do it. Money started coming in, checks with no return address, 15,000 one month, 20 the next. Carla didn't ask where it was coming from, but she had her suspicions. Maria, who handled the books, had her suspicions too. You think it's them? Maria asked one day. Maybe. Should we try to find out? Carla thought about it. Then she shook her head. No, if they wanted us to know, they would have said something. Let's just use it to help people. So they did. They hired a social worker. They hired a lawyer. They rented a second office. They started a hotline. Within a year, Maria's house was helping 30 women a month. Within 2 years, 50. Carla put a plaque on the wall by the door. It was small, the size of a paperback book. It had 4 rings etched into the metal. No names, no dates. Women who came in would sometimes ask what it meant. Carla would say, it means somebody's watching. It means you're not alone. She never explained further. 1 year after the sentencing, Carla got a letter. It came in a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a newspaper clipping. It was an obituary. Mark Devlin's father had died. Heart attack. 63 years old. Carla read it twice. She felt nothing, not sadness, not relief, just nothing. She threw the clipping away. 2 years after the sentencing, Carla went on a date. His name was David. He was a teacher, kind eyes, soft voice. He'd met her at a community event and asked her to coffee. Carla said yes. Then she spent the entire week before the date panicking. Maria talked her through it. He's not Mark. You're allowed to trust people again. What if I can't? Then you can't, but you won't know unless you try. The date was awkward. Carla kept touching her neck. Old habit. David noticed but didn't say anything. They talked about books, about work, about nothing important. At the end of the night, David walked her to her car. I had a good time, he said. Me too. Can I call you? Carla hesitated. Then she said, yes. He did call. They went out again, then again. By the 3rd date, Carla told him about Mark, about the trial, about everything. David listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened. When she finished, he said, thank you for telling me. You're not scared. Of what? Of me, of my past. David shook his head. No, I'm not scared of you. I'm scared for you, but you survived. That's what matters. Carla felt something loosen in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. 3 years after the sentencing, Carla got a phone call. It was from the prison. Mark wanted to speak to her. Carla almost hung up, but something made her listen. Ms. Mendez, the inmate, has requested a phone call with you. You are under no obligation to accept. If you do accept, the call will be monitored and recorded. Do you accept? Carla's heart was pounding. Why does he want to talk to me? He didn't say, ma'am, do you accept the call? Carla closed her eyes. Yes. There was a click. Then Mark's voice. Carla, she hadn't heard his voice in 3 years. It sounded different, smaller. What do you want, Mark? I wanted to apologize. Carla almost laughed. You apologized at sentencing. The judge didn't believe you, neither did I. I know, but I've had 3 years to think about what I did, and I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Good. I'm glad you're sorry, but I don't forgive you. There was a long silence. I didn't call to ask for forgiveness, Mark said quietly. I called to tell you that you were right about everything. I was controlling. I was abusive. I tried to kill you, and I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know. Carla felt tears running down her face. Not because she believed him, not because she forgave him, but because for the first time he'd told the truth. Okay, she said. Thank you for calling. Carla. What? Are you okay? Are you happy? Carla thought about it, about Maria's house, about David, about the life she'd built. Yes, she said. I am. Good, that's good. She hung up. She never spoke to him again. 4 years after the sentencing, Carla married David. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Maria was the maid of honor. Carla wore a simple white dress and no scarf. The scar on her neck was visible. She didn't hide it anymore. After the ceremony, David kissed her. It was gentle, It was safe. It was nothing like the life she'd left behind. At the reception, someone handed Carla an envelope. Inside was a card, no signature, just 10 words. Congratulations, sister. You deserve every happiness. We're proud of you. Carla knew who it was from. She put the card in her pocket and smiled. 5 years after the sentencing, Carla stood in front of a crowd of 200 people at a domestic violence awareness event. She told her story. The divorce, the mall, the trial, the sentencing. She told them about the 4 men who'd stood up, about the rings, about what it meant to not be alone. When she finished, the crowd stood and applauded. Afterward, women came up to her. Some of them were crying. Some of them told her their own stories. One woman, young, maybe 25, said, "I'm still with him. I don't know how to leave." Carla took her hand. "You will, when you're ready. And when you do, I'll be here. We'll all be here." The woman nodded. She was crying. Carla gave her a card. Maria's house. "Call us anytime, day or night. We'll help." 6 years after the sentencing, Carla got a call from Linda. "Carla, I wanted to let you know. Mark applied for early parole. It was denied." Carla felt relief wash over her. How much longer does he have? 14 more years. He won't be eligible again for another 5. Good. How are you doing? I'm good, really good. I'm glad, you deserve it. They hung up. Carla looked at the ring on her left hand, her wedding ring. Then she looked at the ring she kept on a chain around her neck, the ring Reaper had given her. She wore it every day. 7 years after the sentencing, Carla got a letter. It was from a woman she'd never met. The woman said she'd seen Carla speak at an event. She said she'd left her abusive husband because of Carla's story. She said she was alive because Carla had been brave. Carla read the letter 3 times. Then she put it in a box with all the other letters she'd received over the years. There were hundreds of them now. Women who'd left, women who'd survived, women who'd found the courage to say no. Carla had saved 1 life, and in doing so, she'd saved hundreds more. 8 years after the sentencing, Carla went back to the mall one last time. She walked into the food court. She stood at the table where the 4 men had been sitting. She put her hand on the surface, just like she'd done years before. But this time, she didn't feel afraid. She felt grateful. She looked around the food court, families eating, kids laughing, people living their lives. Nobody knew what had happened here. Nobody remembered. But Carla did, and she always would. She touched the ring around her neck. Then she walked out into the sunshine. Alive, free, safe. The world was full of men who put their hands on women, but it was also full of people who stood up, people who said no, people who took off their rings so justice could be served. And Carla Mendez was one of them now. She'd survived, and she was helping others survive too. That was the entire point. 9 years after the sentencing, Carla received a call that changed everything. It was from a detective in San Diego. His name was Tom Morrison. He'd gotten her number from Linda Vasquez. "Ms. Mendez, I'm calling about a case we're working on. A woman was attacked by her ex-boyfriend 3 days ago. He tried to strangle her in a parking lot. She survived because 2 men intervened. One of them was wearing a Hell's Angels patch." Carla's heart started pounding. "Is she okay?" "She's in the hospital, stable, but she's terrified. She won't talk to us, won't file charges. She thinks he'll come back, and he probably will. His bail was set at $50,000. His family posted it this morning. He's out." Carla closed her eyes. She knew this story. She'd lived it. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to talk to her. Woman to woman, survivor to survivor. Her name is Jessica Torres. She's 26. She has 2 kids. She's been trying to leave him for a year. Does she know about me?" I told her. I showed her the video, the one from the mall. She cried for 20 minutes. Then she asked if you were real, if you'd really talked to her. Carla felt something twist in her chest. "I'll talk to her. When? Today, if you can. She's at Sharp Memorial, room 314. I'll be there in 2 hours." Carla hung up. She looked at David. He was reading on the couch. "I have to go to San Diego." He looked up. "Now?" "Yes, there's a woman who needs help." David nodded. He knew better than to ask her to stay. "I'll come with you." "You don't have to." "I know, I'm coming anyway." They drove to San Diego in silence. Carla kept touching the ring around her neck. Old habit. It calmed her. When they got to the hospital, Carla went in alone. David waited in the car. She found room 314. She knocked softly. A young woman's voice said, "Come in." Carla pushed open the door. Jessica Torres was lying in bed. Her neck was wrapped in bandages. Her face was swollen. She had a black eye. She looked exactly like Carla had looked 9 years ago. "Jessica," the young woman nodded. She started crying as soon as she saw Carla. Carla walked over and sat in the chair beside the bed. She didn't say anything. She just waited. After a minute, Jessica said, "You're her. You're the woman from the video." "Yes." "You really survived." "Yes." "How?" Carla took a breath. "I left. I got a restraining order. I testified. And I had help, a lot of help. The detective said 4 bikers saved your life." "They did." Jessica looked at her neck, at the faint scar still visible after all these years. "Does it ever stop hurting?" "Yes, eventually. But it takes time." "I'm scared." "I know. He's out. They let him out. He's going to come back. He always comes back." Carla reached over and took Jessica's hand. "Then we make sure you're somewhere he can't find you. We get you and your kids to a shelter. We get you a lawyer. We get you a new restraining order. And if he violates it, he goes back to jail." "It's not that easy." "I know. Nothing about this is easy. But you're alive. That means you have a chance. Take it." Jessica was crying harder now. "I don't know if I can." "You can. I did. And so have hundreds of other women. You're not alone in this." "What if he kills me? What if he doesn't? What if you leave and you survive and you build a life without him? What if your kids grow up watching you stand up for yourself? What if you show them that nobody gets to put their hands on you? That's worth fighting for, isn't it?" Jessica nodded. She was shaking. Carla stayed with her for an hour. She gave her the number for Maria's house. She gave her the name of a lawyer. She gave her the address of a shelter that specialized in high-risk cases. And she told her about the rings, about the 4 men who'd taken them off, about what it meant to have someone stand up for you. When Carla left, Jessica was still crying, but she was also nodding. She was listening. She was considering the possibility that she could leave. That was enough for now. Carla walked back to the car. David was waiting. "How'd it go?" "I don't know. I hope it was enough." "It was. You showed up. That's what matters." They drove home. Carla watched the highway go by. She thought about Jessica, about Mark, about all the women who were trapped right now in relationships that were killing them. She thought about the 4 men who'd saved her life. She wondered where they were, if they knew what they'd started, if they knew that 9 years later, she was still carrying their message forward. 2 weeks later, Carla got a call from Jessica. "I did it. I left. I took the kids and I went to the shelter. He doesn't know where I am. I filed charges. The detective said he's being charged with attempted murder." Carla felt tears running down her face. "I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. You showed me it was possible. You did it yourself. I just told you what I learned. Thank you for everything." They hung up. Carla sat on her couch and cried. David came over and held her. "Good tears?" he asked. "Yeah, good tears." 10 years after the sentencing, Maria's house moved to a bigger location, 3 offices, a full-time staff of 5, a 24-hour hotline. They were helping over 100 women a month now. Carla worked there full-time. She'd quit her other job. This was what she was meant to do. Maria ran the administrative side. She handled the money, the staffing, the logistics. Carla handled the women. She met with them. She listened to them. She told them her story over and over until her voice was hoarse. And every single time she showed them the ring around her neck. 4 men I'd never met saved my life. And now I'm saving yours. That's how this works. We stand up for each other. The checks kept coming. Anonymous, large, regular. One day Maria came into Carla's office holding an envelope. "This one has a return address." Carla looked at it. It was from Northern California. No name, just an address. She opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note. "Keep doing what you're doing, sister. You are making us proud." It was signed with 4 hand-drawn rings. Carla showed it to Maria. "It's them." "You think I know. Should we write back?" Carla thought about it. Then she shook her head. "No, they know we're grateful. Let's just keep doing the work." 11 years after the sentencing, Carla got a call she'd been dreading. It was from the parole board. Mark was up for early release again. His lawyer was arguing good behavior, rehabilitation, he'd taken classes in prison, anger management, therapy. The hearing was in 2 months. Carla could submit a statement, or she could appear in person. Carla felt sick. She'd thought she had more time. He wasn't supposed to be eligible for another 4 years. She called Linda. They're trying again. His lawyer found some loophole, something about overcrowding and good behavior credits. Linda swore, but he served 11 years. That's not even half his sentence. What do I do? You show up, you tell them what he did, you tell them you're still afraid, and you make sure they don't let him out. Will it work? I don't know, but we have to try. Carla hung up. She sat at her desk and put her head in her hands. David came in. What's wrong? She told him. He sat down across from her. You're going to that hearing. I know. And I'm going with you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my wife, and nobody's letting that man out while I'm still breathing. Carla looked at him. At this man who'd stood by her for 6 years, who'd never once made her feel afraid, who'd shown her what love was supposed to look like. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just tell me what you need. I need to call Reaper. David blinked. The biker? Yes. You have his number. No, but I know someone who might. Carla called Linda. Linda made some calls. Within an hour, Carla had a number. She dialed it. It rang 4 times. Then a familiar voice answered. Yeah. Reaper, this is Carla Mendez. There was a pause. Carla, it's been a while. You okay? No, Mark's up for parole. The hearing's in 2 months. They might let him out. Another pause. Longer this time. When's the hearing? June 15th, 10 in the morning. State Parole Board office in Sacramento. We'll be there. You don't have to. We'll be there. He hung up. Carla sat there holding the phone. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not hope exactly, but something close. The knowledge that she wasn't facing this alone. 2 months later, Carla walked into the parole board hearing. The room was smaller than the courtroom had been. Just a table, some chairs, and 3 board members sitting at the front. Mark was already there. He looked older, thinner. His hair was gray at the temples. He was wearing a prison jumpsuit. He didn't look at Carla when she walked in. David sat beside her. Maria was on her other side. Linda was there too, even though she didn't have to be. And in the back row, 4 men sat waiting. Reaper, Tank, Bones, Coyote. They'd kept their word. Again. The hearing started. Mark's lawyer went first. He talked about rehabilitation, about the classes Mark had taken, about how Mark was a changed man, about how he deserved a second chance. Then Mark spoke. His voice was quiet, rehearsed. I've had 11 years to think about what I did. I was angry. I was hurt. I took it out on the woman I loved. I'm not that man anymore. I've worked hard to change. I've taken responsibility. I've done everything the state has asked me to do. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be a productive member of society. The board members nodded. They looked almost convinced. Then the chairman said, Does the victim wish to make a statement? Carla stood. Her hands were shaking. Yes. She walked to the front of the room. She stood at the podium. She looked at the 3 board members. My name is Carla Mendez. 11 years ago, Mark Devlin tried to kill me in a shopping mall. He choked me until I couldn't breathe. He pulled out a knife. He put that knife to my throat. And he told me he wasn't leaving without me. He would have killed me if 4 strangers hadn't intervened. He fractured a bone in my neck. I spent 2 days in the hospital. I spent the next year afraid to leave my house. I still have nightmares. I still look over my shoulder. And the thought of him being released makes me feel like I'm back in that food court with his hand around my throat. She paused. She looked at Mark. He was staring at his hands. Mark's lawyer says he's changed. Maybe he has. I don't know. But I know this: he tried to kill me, not in a moment of passion, not by accident. He planned it. He brought a knife. He violated a restraining order. He came to that mall intending to end my life. And if you let him out now after only 11 years, you're telling every woman in an abusive relationship that her life is worth 11 years. That attempting to murder your ex-wife is worth 11 years. Is that the message you want to send? The chairman was writing something down. Thank you, Miss Mendez. You may sit. Carla walked back to her seat. David squeezed her hand. The chairman looked at the back of the room. I understand there are additional witnesses who wish to speak. Reaper stood. Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record. Raymond Cole. And your relationship to the victim. I'm the man who stopped Mark Devlin from killing her. The room went quiet. The chairman looked at his notes. You were one of the witnesses at the original trial, Monday. Yes, sir. And you wish to speak regarding Mr. Devlin's parole? Yes, sir. Proceed. Reaper walked to the front. He didn't use the podium. He just stood there. 11 years ago, I watched Mark Devlin choke his ex-wife until she couldn't breathe. I watched him pull out a knife. I watched him put that knife to her throat. And I heard him say he wasn't leaving without her. That's not a man who lost control. That's a man who came to commit murder. I've been around violence my whole life. I know the difference between a man who makes a mistake and a man who's dangerous. Mark Devlin is dangerous. He might have taken classes in prison. He might have said all the right things, but that doesn't change what he is. And if you let him out, he will go after her again. Men like him always do. I've seen it 100 times. So I'm asking you not to let him out. Not now, not ever. Because if you do, you're signing her death warrant. One. He sat down. The chairman looked at Mark's lawyer. Do you wish to respond? The lawyer stood. My client has served 11 years. He's done everything required of him. Mr. Cole's statement is based on emotion, not facts. The facts are that my client has been a model prisoner. He deserves consideration for parole. The chairman nodded. Thank you. The board will deliberate and issue a decision within 30 days. The hearing ended. Carla walked out into the hallway. She was shaking. Reaper came over. You did good in there. Do you think they'll deny him? I don't know, but we said what needed saying. Carla looked at him, at this man who kept showing up, who kept standing up, who kept proving that there were still good people in the world. Why do you keep doing this? It's been 11 years. You don't owe me anything. Reaper's expression softened. I told you before, my mother died because nobody stood up for her. I'm not letting that happen to you. None of us are. Tank Bones and Coyote came over. They nodded at Carla. She nodded back. Thank you, she said, all of you. Tank said, don't thank us yet. Wait till they deny him. 30 days later, Carla got a letter from the parole board. She was at Maria's house when it arrived. She stared at the envelope for a full minute before opening it. Maria came over. You want me to read it? No, I need to do this. Carla opened the envelope. She pulled out the letter. She read it once, then again. Then she started crying. Maria grabbed her. What does it say? Parole denied. Denied for another 5 years. Maria screamed. She hugged Carla so hard she couldn't breathe. Carla called David. She called Linda. She called Reaper. When Reaper answered, she said they denied him. Good, that's how it should be. Thank you for showing up, for speaking, for everything. You don't have to keep thanking me, Carla. Yes, I do. You saved my life. You keep saving my life. Reaper was quiet for a moment. You saved your own life. You left. You testified. You built something that's helping other women. That's all you. We just gave you a chance. You gave me more than a chance. You gave me hope. Then take that hope and pass it on. That's what it's for. They hung up. Carla sat at her desk and looked at the letter. Denied for another 5 years. Mark would be 43 when he came up for parole again. She'd be 38. She had 5 more years of safety, 5 more years to live without fear. She was going to make them count. 12 years after the sentencing, Maria's house received a grant from the state, $250,000, to expand services, to hire more staff, to help more women. Carla used the money to open a second location. This one was in Los Angeles, a bigger city, more women who needed help. She hired survivors to run it, women who'd escaped, women who understood. The first day the new office opened, 50 women called the hotline. Carla sat in her office and listened to the phones ring. She thought about the woman she used to be, the woman who'd been too afraid to leave, too afraid to speak up, too afraid to live. That woman was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who'd survived, Someone who was helping others survive too. 13 years after the sentencing, Carla received an award from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. She flew to Washington, D.C. to accept it. David went with her. So did Maria. The ceremony was at a hotel ballroom, 500 people in attendance, survivors, advocates, politicians. When they called Carla's name, she walked to the stage. They handed her a plaque. It was heavy, engraved with her name. She stood at the podium and looked at the crowd. 13 years ago, a man tried to kill me in a shopping mall. I thought that was the end of my story, but four strangers decided it wasn't. They stood up, they took off their rings, and they showed me that I wasn't alone. That changed everything. Because now when women come to me and say they can't leave, they're too afraid they don't have anywhere to go. I tell them the same thing those four men showed me: you're not alone. We're here, we'll stand up for you. That's what this award represents. Not just my survival, but the survival of every woman who's found the courage to leave. Every woman who's found the courage to speak up. Every woman who's found the courage to live. Thank you. The crowd stood and applauded. Some of them were crying. Carla walked off the stage. She looked at the plaque. She thought about the rings, about the four men who'd saved her life. She wondered if they knew, if they understood what they'd started. 14 years after the sentencing, Carla got a call from Tank. She was surprised. She hadn't heard from any of them in over a year. Tank: yeah, hey Carla, how you doing? I'm good, how are you? Good. Listen, I'm calling because Reaper's sick. Carla's stomach dropped. What do you mean sick? Cancer, lung cancer, stage 4. Doctors say he's got maybe 6 months. Oh God. He doesn't want people to know, doesn't want the pity, but I thought you should know. He asks about you sometimes, about how you're doing. I thought maybe you'd want to visit. Where is he? Where I saw him? Hospice facility in Oakland. I can text you the address. Please, Carla. Yeah, don't wait too long. Carla hung up. She sat down. She couldn't breathe. David came in. What's wrong? She told him. He didn't hesitate. We're going, today. They drove to Oakland. It took 4 hours. Carla didn't say much. She kept touching the ring around her neck. When they got to the hospice facility, Tank was waiting outside. He hugged Carla. He's in room 12. He knows you're coming. Carla walked down the hall. She knocked on the door. Come in. She pushed open the door. Reaper was in bed. He looked smaller than she remembered. Thinner, gray, but his eyes were the same. Still sharp, still steady. Carla. She walked over. She sat in the chair beside the bed. She didn't trust herself to speak. Don't cry, Reaper said. I've had a good run. This isn't fair. Life isn't fair. You know that better than anyone. Carla wiped her eyes. I never got to thank you properly for everything you did. You thanked me 100 times. It wasn't enough. Reaper smiled. You know what the best thank you is? Seeing what you've built. Maria's house. All those women you've helped. That's what we wanted. We didn't want gratitude. We wanted you to live. And you did. You lived bigger than any of us expected. Because of you. No, because of you. We just gave you a chance. They sat in silence for a minute. Then Reaper said, I want you to do something for me. Anything. Keep wearing that ring. Keep telling the story. Keep showing women that they're not alone. That's my legacy. Not the club, not the miles I rode, not the fights I won. The fact that I stood up when it mattered. That's what I want to be remembered for. Carla was crying. I promise. Good. Now get out of here. Go live your life. Make it count. Carla stood. She leaned over and kissed his forehead. Thank you for my life, for everything. You're welcome, sister. She walked out. Tank was waiting in the hallway. You okay? No, but I will be. Reaper died 3 weeks later. The funeral was massive. Hundreds of bikers from chapters all over the country. They lined the streets. They revved their engines. They said goodbye to a brother. Carla stood at the back with David and Maria. She wore the ring on the outside of her shirt, where everyone could see it. After the service, Bones came over. He left you something. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten, dated 2 days before he died. Carla, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't be sad. I lived the life I wanted. I rode with my brothers. I stood up when it mattered. I saw you survive and thrive. That's enough for any man. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep standing up for women who can't stand up for themselves. Keep showing them what I showed you. They're not alone. The world needs more people like you. People who turn pain into purpose. People who survive and then help others survive. You're one of the good ones, Carla. Don't ever forget that. Reaper. Carla folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. She held it against her chest and cried. 15 years after the sentencing, Carla stood in front of a new location for Maria's house. The third one. This time in San Francisco, right in the heart of the city. A reporter asked her, "What keeps you going?" Carla touched the ring around her neck. 4 men who showed me that people still stand up, that there's still good in this world, that we're not alone. I keep going because they showed me how. What would you say to women who are in abusive relationships right now? Carla looked directly at the camera. I would say this: you are stronger than you think. You are worth saving, and you are not alone. There are people who will stand up for you, people who will help you leave, people who will walk beside you as you rebuild. You just have to take the first step. Call a hotline. Tell someone. Leave. Do whatever it takes to survive, because your life matters, and the world needs you in it. The interview aired the next day. The hotline received over 200 calls. Carla answered as many as she could. Each time she told her story. Each time she showed them the ring. Each time she said the same thing Reaper had said to her 14 years ago. You are not alone. 16 years after the sentencing, Mark Devlin came up for parole again. This time Carla wasn't afraid. She showed up to the hearing. She gave her statement. She looked the board members in the eyes and said, "This man tried to kill me. He will try again if you let him out. Keep him in prison where he belongs." The board denied his parole. Again, Mark's lawyer filed an appeal. It was denied. Mark would serve his full 25-year sentence. No early release, no parole, no second chances. Carla walked out of that hearing and felt something she hadn't felt in 16 years. Freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes from knowing the man who tried to kill you will never walk free while you're still alive. She called Tank. They denied him. Full sentence, no parole. Tank laughed. Good. That's what he deserves. How are you? How are Bones and Coyote? We're good. Getting old, but we're good. Thank you for everything, for showing up all those times, for never giving up on me. We didn't do it for you to thank us, Carla. We did it because it was right. But you're welcome anyway. They hung up. Carla looked at David. It's over. Really over. He pulled her into a hug. You did it. You survived. You thrived. You won. 20 years after the attack, Carla stood in a packed auditorium giving a TED Talk. The title, The 4 Rings, How Strangers Saved My Life and Changed My Purpose. She told the whole story. The mall, the choking, the knife, the 4 men, the rings, the trial, the sentencing, Maria's house, the thousands of women they'd helped. When she finished, the audience stood and applauded for 5 minutes. Afterward, women lined up to talk to her, to thank her, to tell her their stories, to ask for help. Carla gave every single one of them a card. Maria's house. Call us. We'll help. The video of the talk went viral. 10 million views in the first week, 20 million by the end of the month. Women from all over the world reached out. Some wanted help. Some wanted to help. Some just wanted to say thank you. Carla answered as many as she could. She built a team to handle the overflow. She expanded Maria's house to 10 locations across 5 states. She hired survivors to run them. Women who understood. Women who'd been where Carla had been. Women who knew what it meant to stand up. 25 years after the attack, Mark Devlin was released from prison. He was 53 years old, gray, thin, broken by 25 years behind bars. Carla heard about it from Linda. He's out, but he's on parole for life. One wrong move and he goes back in. Do I need to worry? No, he's got nothing left, Carla. No family, no money, no future. He's just a broken old man now. Carla felt nothing. Not fear, not anger, not even satisfaction. Just nothing. Mark Devlin had stolen 3 years of her life. She'd taken the next 22 and turned them into something beautiful. She'd won. Completely. Utterly. Finally. 6 months after Mark's release, Carla got a call from a hospital in Riverside. Mark Devlin had died. Heart attack. He'd been alone in a motel room. Nobody had found him for 3 days. Carla hung up the phone. She sat at her desk. She looked at the ring around her neck. She felt relieved. She felt free. She felt like a chapter had finally closed. That night, she took David's hand. He's dead. How do you feel? Like I can finally breathe. They sat together in the quiet. After a while, Carla said, I want to call Tank. She did. He answered on the second ring. Tank, it's Carla. Hey, how you doing? Mark died. I thought you should know. There was a pause. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. That's all that matters then. Tank, yeah. Thank you for everything, for saving my life, for showing up all those times, for proving that good people exist. You don't have to thank me, Carla. You never did. I know, but I'm going to anyway. She hung up. She looked at David. I'm free. Really, truly free. He kissed her. You've been free for 25 years. You just didn't know it. 30 years after the attack, Carla retired from Maria's house. She was 58 years old. She'd spent half her life helping other women escape what she'd escaped. The organization had grown beyond anything she'd imagined. 50 locations, 200 staff members, thousands of women helped every year. At her retirement party, women came from all over the country, women she'd saved, women she'd counseled, women she'd shown that they weren't alone. One by one, they stood up and told their stories, how Carla had saved them, how she'd given them hope, how she'd shown them that survival was possible. When it was Carla's turn to speak, she stood in front of the crowd and said only this. 30 years ago, 4 men I'd never met took off their rings so my ex-husband would live long enough to face justice. They showed me that people still stand up, that we're not alone, that goodness still exists. I've spent the last 30 years passing that message on, and now I'm asking you to do the same. Stand up for someone, show them they're not alone. Take off your rings if you have to. Do whatever it takes, because that's how we change the world. One person at a time. The room erupted in applause. Carla sat down. Maria hugged her. You did good, sis. Really good. We did good, you and me. Yeah, we did. Carla looked around the room, at all the faces, at all the survivors, at all the people who'd found hope because 4 strangers had stood up in a food court 30 years ago. And she thought about Reaper, about his last words to her, about his legacy. She'd kept his promise. She'd worn the ring. She'd told the story. She'd shown women they weren't alone. And she'd turned her pain into purpose. That's what survival looked like. Not just living, but living in a way that mattered. Living in a way that helped others live too. Carla Mendez had survived. And in surviving, she'd saved thousands. The world was full of men who put their hands on women. But it was also full of people who stood up. People who said no. People who took off their rings so justice could be served. People who turned tragedy into triumph. People who proved that one act of courage could ripple forward for decades. Carla was one of those people now, and she'd made sure thousands of others were too. That was the entire point. That's what the 4 rings had always meant. You're not alone. Somebody's watching. Somebody will stand up. And 30 years later, the message was louder than ever.